everyone and welcome. This is Dawn. I hope you're having a great day. I'm back with another Christmas card for you. I'm going to be watercoloring with Distress Oxide inks, and I'll only be using one stamp set to make this entire card. I'm using the Whimsy Stamps Vintage Poinsettia. It has everything you need to make a beautiful card. Great images and lovely sentiments. I also want to apologize for my voice. I seem to have another cold again. It's been a tough season this year with being sick, I guess. But anyways, let's get started. I just want to say that this card was a labor of love. My brother's scan and cut was not cooperating with me today. It wanted to cut all the detailed lines on the poinsettia. So to get around this, I stamped my image lightly with some black ink onto some watercolored paper. I don't press down too much in the middle of the poinsettia because I really just want the outline of the poinsettia, and then I can run it through my brother's scan and cut and it cuts just fine. Now leave the poinsettia stamp in your MISTI because you will need to go back to it. We're going to put gold embossing powder over it, so don't worry about it being in black ink. You won't even see it. Okay, now that my poinsettia is cut out, I'm going to put my negative piece of paper back in the MISTI stamping tool, and I put the poinsettia back in the middle of the paper. Now, if you want, you can put some removable adhesive to hold it in place, but mine stayed just fine. Make sure to clean the black ink off of the poinsettia. Then I'm going to rub it with my embossing powder bag and then stamp it with my Versamark ink. I did stamp it twice just to make sure it covered the black ink really well. Then I pour gold embossing powder on it and I make sure I cover it really well. And when my heat tool is good and hot, I heat emboss the poinsettia. I just use my tweezers to hold it in place so it doesn't move all around. And I just want to show you, you can't see any of the black ink at all. So that's just a little trick that I do when my scan and cut is acting kind of finicky. Okay, now I take another piece of watercolor paper and I went ahead and heat embossed some of the poinsettia leaves where I wanted them to go. I didn't show the whole process because it's the same thing as the poinsettia we just did. I'm just going to show you one particular part where I did some masking. Once I decide where I want my other leaf to go, I cut a piece of sticky paper and I place it over the area I don't want to emboss. I'm going to place the leaf so it looks like it's attached to the other leaves. So I have to cut out some of the berries and I want the stem to show, so I cut a V in the paper. I line it up next to the leaf I want it to stick out of, and then I stamp it with Versamark ink. Then this is very important. I forget sometimes, that's why I'm mentioning it. Take the sticky paper off before stamping it, otherwise it will leave a smudge mark. And then I just went ahead and heat embossed it with the gold ink. Now I'm sorry I didn't show me watercoloring the leaves, but something happened to my video for that section, but that's okay. I have a lot more watercoloring to do that I will show you. I used the Distress Oxide Rustic Wilderness for the leaves. I'm going to color in the berries using the Candy Apple color, so let's get to it. All I do is put some of the ink onto my glass media mat, and then I just spray a tiny bit of water on it. You don't need a lot at all. It all depends on how dark you want the color to be on your paper. I take my paintbrush and just start coloring in the berries. It's really that quick and simple. I'm going to skip ahead actually to the poinsettia, and I basically do the same thing as I do with the berries. The only difference I do with the poinsettia is I add a lot more water. Now you can either wet the paper with plain water to make the colors more diluted, or you can just use what's on your glass media mat. I kept a cup of water next to me and I just kept dipping my brush into it to add a little bit more water to it to make it a little bit more diluted. I did color the center of the flower with Distress Oxide Fossilized Amber, and then I'm going to use the Rustic Wilderness again for the leaves. Now you can also bring in other colors to do some shading. I chose not to do that, but you can if you want to. It's just so simple to use the Distress Oxide inks. I have lots of paint sets, but honestly, I just like to use my inks. I have so many more colors of the Distress Oxide than I do my paint sets, and sometimes I just find it more fun to use them. To save some time, I went ahead and heat embossed the sentiment onto the card, and now I decided to whip out one of my metallic paint sets only because I wanted to splatter gold paint onto the card. All you do is wet the paint and the brush really good, and you hit the paintbrush and it will splatter all over the card. I do this quite a few times until I have the desired look that I wanted. I put foam tape on the back of the poinsettia and I place it on the card on top of the poinsettia leaves. I put craft foam on the back of the card front and then I adhere it to a piece of gold cardstock that I did cut some sentiments out of since this cardstock isn't cheap and I didn't want to waste it. No one will ever know you cut out the sentiments from it. And then I adhere the card front to a piece of white cardstock that I cut to 8.5 by 5.5 and I scored it at 4.25. And that's going to complete my card for today. This card is super fun to make and I think the gold embossing makes it look very elegant. I want to thank you for joining me on the Whimsy Stamps YouTube channel. I would love for you to leave a comment and let me know what you think of the card. Be sure to subscribe to the Whimsy Stamps YouTube channel and their other social media platforms so you don't miss out on any upcoming releases and great inspirational videos. Also, check out their website for all their new releases. And as always, thanks for stopping by and have yourself a wonderful day.